Welcome back to our Steven. Have you taken the time to memorize your own phone number? And today, from a customer who insisted the employee was wrong to a boss regretting that they demanded every minute be tracked, we've got some satisfying malicious compliance stories, all starting with a post titled, My Balloons. Early to mid-2000s, my first real job was inside sales for a large corporation. It was a very outdated cubicle environment. My fellow salespeople were awesome. I'm still friends with some of them today, but oh man, the middle management team there was a charcuterie of incompetence. One week, they had this idea that they would string up 3 yellow balloons on everyone's desk. Every sale you made, they would pop one of your balloons. This way, near the middle or end of the week, everyone could see who was struggling to meet the goal. Some people who didn't close any deals were really embarrassed and upset. It was like a scarlet letter, but yellow balloons instead. So, the following Monday, when the balloons were back up for everyone, I took out packages of yellow balloons I had purchased and started blowing them up and filling up my cubicle with them. I had them taped all along the walls, etc. My whole space was yellow. One of the useless managers came by and asked what I was doing. I explained that I just really loved the yellow balloons and decided to bring my own to decorate my space even more. I saw the managers huddle up, glancing over at me, and could make out that they were discussing my personal balloons. I shared balloons with people around me who also decorated their cubes. Managers were upset that I was spoiling their plan to humiliate people, and one of them came by and popped a few of my personal balloons. I promptly contacted HR because that was destruction of my personal property, and since it was such a corporate-y place, they took my complaint about balloons seriously. After that week, they abandoned the balloon idea completely. In my mind, I imagine a visual where OP is sitting at the desk, that higher up comes by and just pops the balloon. The office lights suddenly dim dramatically. OP looks and turns up to them slowly. Did you just pop my balloon? The manager or higher up starts looking around awkwardly. Everybody's staring at them. That's how it played out in my mind, and I'm not changing a thing. In the comments, Frangible Soul wrote, So, what was the first thing that popped into your mind? King Boo Radley replied, Sounds like the managers were rapidly deflated by your plan. And Big Sugi wrote, OP really burst their bubble. Our next story is, a customer was upset I didn't give her the right amount of fish. She was right. I used to work at a mom and pop store that sold clothes, farm supplies, animals, and sporting goods. Anyway, since we sold sporting goods, we also sold bait fish. Fishermen would frequently stop by our store to buy them to fish with, and they were sold by the dozen. Usually when I scooped bait, I would give a few extra fish to my customers. I had this one Russian lady coming to purchase bait fish, so just as I normally did, I scooped a net full of fish and started dumping them in the bag, counting them individually, and added a few extra to the bag. The lady watched me do this, but insisted that I did not give her the correct amount. I assured her that I not only gave her the dozen she paid for, but I gave her a few extra. I literally just counted and have done this long enough that I was really good at eyeing when it was over a dozen. The lady just kept insisting that I didn't give her enough, so I said, okay, let's count together just to be sure. So I dump all the fish from the bag back into the net and we start counting together very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We get to 12 and it's very clear there are several extra fish still in the net. I look up at her and I was like, oh, you were right. I didn't give you the right amount. I then proceeded to dump the remaining fish back into the tank right in front of her and gave her exactly the amount she paid for. Update, she ended up just looking bewildered when I handed the fish back to her and left. Really, nothing more she could have done at that point, but I did start applying this philosophy to the customers who bought crickets. Now, I don't know about the whole fish thing, but I wish there were more people like OP when I went and bought some fries. In my opinion, anybody out there who works at a restaurant and serves the fries by filling the container up as much as possible deserves good luck for the next week. In the comments, a user named Henchwench wrote, Similar thing used to happen to me when I worked fast food. Some customers would complain that I didn't fill their ice cream cup enough and insist I remake it with the right amount, which I did. What they didn't realize was the amount I was meant to give was fairly stingy and I always overfilled the cups. So would remake and weigh their ice cream and tell them they were right. I gave the wrong amount before, had actually given them too much. Petty as heck, but I'm okay with it. And speaking of too much, if there's no such thing as too many malicious compliance stories, why not help me keep covering them by hitting those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, they made me come in. Was working for a place back in the 90s, I worked my own shift and picked up plenty of others too. And whether people liked me or not, acknowledged I was a hard worker. Compared to many who called off all the time, I rarely did. But I caught a bug and had horrible nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, and nothing was staying down. There was no way I could work like that. Night supervisor said, you have to come in, no exceptions. Tried to tell him I'm losing it from both ends every 5 minutes. He didn't care. Fine. Somehow didn't poop my pants driving in the 2 miles, but did vomit out the side door at least once. Walked through the building, looked ashen as heck, horrible stomach cramps, and went to his office. He made me sit there for 15 minutes until he was ready to address me. By then, stomach rumbling, sweat on the brow, I turned to vomit all over the place. Watery vomit with whatever color Gatorade and chunks of yogurt came up, and a little leakage on the back end too, and wasn't subtle, it was a lot. He just looked at me, looked a little peaked then too, and said, you made your point, you can go. I stumbled home and pretty much spent the next day or so in the bathroom. I do remember my neighbor bringing me some baby wipes at some point, which I greatly appreciated, but no points. I came into work like I was told, and they sent me home. I was willing to stay. Could you imagine OP sitting there in that utter mess? They wipe their mouth and they're like, no boss, come on, I could stay a little bit longer. Put me on the fryers, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe I can run the dishwasher, what's the worst that can happen? I just need to wash a little bit more. In the comments, a user named Contrancher wrote, that jerk should have driven you home himself. After all, it was his fault. What if he got into an accident on the way back due to your horrible condition? Would he want that on his conscience? The OP replied, just a cog in the machine, replaceable as needed. There was no company loyalty. Union only protected their buddies and people backstabbed you. Mostly nothing has changed in most jobs. A user named Anti-Nursey wrote, I threw up on my boss's desk one morning after trying to tell him I was sick. Sometimes they just need a reality check. P.S. Norovirus just sucks. Our next story is, I can't sleep in the same room as my boyfriend when I'm at your house? Fine, we won't sleep there. I was a recent college graduate who had made the immoral choice to move in with a boyfriend without getting married. We moved in together in another state, about a 6-hour drive from my parents, who lived about 2 hours away from the boyfriend's parents. When we came back to visit, my parents made us sleep in separate rooms and beds because we weren't married. After a visit or two like this, Christmas holiday rolled around. We were planning to be in the state for the whole week between Christmas and New Year's, splitting the time between the two families. We start by spending 2 nights at my parents', then around dinner time the 3rd day, we leave to head to his parents'. My parents are surprised and confused that we're not staying longer. They expected us to split the time evenly. My reply, well, at his parents' house we get to sleep together, so we want to spend the night there. Bye. Before the next visit, they let us know that they have decided that since we are a committed couple, they will allow us to share a room even though we're not married. To be fair, it is the parents' house, they do have their own sensibilities, and OP and their partner respected that, and they were just honest. If they have a choice, they're not going to choose a place where they're being split apart. All in all, I feel like this is actually a pretty respectful malicious compliance. In the comments, the OP also added, also in this time period, my sister and her girlfriend lived in my parents' house also and shared a room despite there being 2 empty rooms. Once my parents finally realized they were dating, they had known she was gay for years, they made them sleep in separate rooms. They moved out soon after. A user named I Poop Sometimes commented, when my girlfriend first started staying over at my parents' house, we were 25. My parents had no idea what to do. They would always make up the guest room for her, but never said anything more than that. When I finally mentioned it, I found out the reason was that they didn't want to come across as presumptuous or make her feel pressured to sleep in my room. They figured every guest gets their own room and whether they sleep in it or not is their own choice. Our next story is, only do this task in the last 30 minutes of your shift. Okay, Karen, I'll do nothing for the rest of the day. I was working at an organization where part of my job was organizing thousands of high-quality photos of students' artworks from the main computer I worked on and transfer them to a network server. The goal was to make high-quality images accessible to other staff remotely. To do it correctly, the process was time-consuming. It involved making medium-resolution JPEGs from high-res Photoshop files. That part was easy to do via batch processing. The time-consuming part was each image needed to be individually labeled with specific details about the artwork and its creator, dimensions, etc. My department manager had emphasized the importance of this task, as these labeled images were important for various organizational needs for other staff. But my new-ish supervisor, Karen, not her real name, was a major micromanager and said, "Why are you spending so much time on this project? I only want you to work on this task in the last 30 minutes of your shift." I tried to convince her it wasn't an efficient use of my time, arguing that flexibility in my workflow was necessary. I explained that on many days, this task would be an ideal fill-in activity, allowing me to stay productive during otherwise slow periods. Nope, just do it in the last 30 minutes of your shift. Okay, you got it. Cue malicious compliance. On some days, there were literally no other productive tasks to carry on with. I could have made great progress on that task, but nope. I would sit there trying to look busy or would walk around the campus with a few sheets of paper in hand. I would try to invent ways to be and look productive, but sadly, in actual fact, I was doing very little at all. This went on for months, when one day, I had a call from the department manager asking, "Why hasn't this project been completed yet? I've been specifically instructed by Karen not to spend any time on this task except for the last 30 minutes of my shift." Karen didn't stay with the organization for much longer after that. I would love if people in the comments could tell me what they would do if they had intermittent bouts of downtime during a day like that, but I guess with the caveat of you still gotta appear to be busy. If it fell on me, I would probably be finding like some sports page or something to read, or maybe even take up a little bit of like creative writing and then have like a spreadsheet or something I can pop up if somebody's coming around. I mean, OP themselves, they're talking about they're out and about, they're on the campus with paper in hand trying to look busy. In the comments, a user named Zaire Phoenix wrote, "Get a clipboard with some blank paper on it and walk around with it. If you want to work out, just walk quickly." Grumpy Old Geezer replied, "Not blank paper. Make sure there's something written on it, otherwise you'll get called out on it like a former supervisor was." By us, his underlings. We all need a relaxing day from time to time, so no need to tell anyone about him. The OP replied, "Carrying a well-used manila folder with some paperwork relevant to my role and some other papers that could be photocopied was my go-to." Our next story is, "Oh, so you do pick up after yourself and I'm just exaggerating? Let's give every man for himself a try then." Years ago, when I just moved in with my then boyfriend, now fiance, he was terrible picking up after himself. He was a self-admitted mama's boy and went directly from his parents' house to our shared home. Barely 3 weeks in, I was fed up. So when I told him that I was tired of picking up after him and acting as his maid, he hit me with, "That's not true. We both clean up equally." After a bit of back and forth, he said, "Well, if you don't believe me, then let's split the house. You take care of your half, and I take care of mine." I took that literally, got painter's tape, divided every single room in half, including the kitchen counter, the inside of the fridge, the bathroom counter. Also, he was cocky and suggested 2 months. I shortened it to 1. Not even a week in, his half looked like a pigsty and he had no more food. Because I stopped grocery shopping and cooking for him, the only exception I made was cleaning the toilet and shower because I was not about to use a filthy bathroom to make a point. He bought me flowers and chocolate, apologized for his behavior, and started learning how to be an adult. We are 8 years into this relationship, and he's an amazing man. We are about to get married. The important thing here is he was willing to learn, which for a lot of self-admitted mama's boys out there, that's the barrier to entry, because mama certainly didn't make them learn, and it's going to be a hard time adjusting to that reality. In the comments, an anonymous user wrote, "That's a great way to teach him though. But OP, is he any better about cleaning now?" The OP replied, "He is, and we made a chore schedule, and he learned to do all the things he didn't know. He is a good man, he was just not equipped to live on his own, so he learned." Our next story is, you want me to log every minute? Sure thing, boss. A few years back, I worked as a junior analyst at a mid-sized consulting firm. Our team was known for delivering quality work, often going above and beyond to meet tight deadlines. We had a flexible work culture, and as long as the work got done, no one micromanaged our hours. Enter our new manager, Karen, not her real name, but fitting. Karen came from a corporate background and was obsessed with metrics and control. She introduced a new policy. Every team member had to log their work in 15-minute increments using a new time tracking software. She claimed it was to optimize productivity, but it felt more like surveillance. We tried to express our concerns, highlighting that the nature of our work didn't always fit neatly into 15-minute blocks. Sometimes we had brainstorming sessions, quick client calls, or impromptu team huddles. But Karen was adamant. If it's not logged, it didn't happen. Fine. I decided to comply. Maliciously, I began logging every single activity. 9 a.m. to 9:15 a.m., booting up computer and reviewing emails. 9:15 to 9:30, responding to emails. 9:30 to 9:45, coffee break. 9:45 to 10, team stand-up meeting. 10 to 10:15, bathroom break. 10:15 to 10:30, reading industry articles for professional development. And so on. I included everything. Waiting for files to download, software updates, even the time spent logging time. I wasn't the only one. The entire team followed suit. Within a week, Karen was inundated with detailed logs that painted a picture of a team bogged down by administrative tasks. Our actual productivity took a hit because we were so focused on tracking every minute. After 2 weeks, Karen called a team meeting. She looked exhausted. "Okay, maybe we went a bit overboard with the time tracking," she admitted. "Let's simplify the process." Victory. We returned to our previous system, focusing on deliverables rather than micromanaging time. Productivity soared, and Karen learned that trust and flexibility often yield better results than rigid control. I'll be honest, I have enough personal struggles with inattentive type ADHD. If I, throughout my workday, whenever I had to switch gears or do something else, had to stop and jot down real quick whatever I'm doing and the time I'm doing it at, and then again when I complete it, I wouldn't be getting anything done. My brain would be fried. By lunchtime, I'd be fed up with the place. In the comments, a user named Giant Thinks wrote, "There's software packages and phone apps for this sort of thing. It's easy enough to pick a job number and hit the button to start the timer, then hit stop. Pick next, and off you go again." One popular app, for example, is Toggle, just saying. VOP replied to that saying, "Yeah, we actually suggested something like that early on. Karen said it would encourage slacking because it's too easy to fudge the numbers. Apparently manually writing down 9:37 a.m., picked up stapler was the only trustworthy method. Honestly, I think she just liked watching us suffer." A user named Wills left a comment saying, "Very good malicious compliance, but kudos to Karen for eventually owning up to her mistake. Were there any other issues with her going forward?" VOP replied, "Right? It's rare that you see a Karen do the full circle from petty to reflective. Honestly, after that whole spreadsheet drama, she chilled out a lot. Maybe realizing we had receipts for everything made her think twice about pulling more stunts. She even started asking questions instead of accusing people. Growth? Or fear of Excel? Who's to say?" Our next story is, Cheapskate argues over $2.75 iced tea that they didn't like on the bill, so I happily switched it out for the $3 soda they ordered instead. Some people are particular about their iced teas. Ours has a tropical flavor, which this woman didn't care for. "Can I just get a diet soda instead?" not a problem. Trying to hunt down a manager to void out an iced tea for a soda isn't worth the effort, especially for a negligible 25-cent difference between beverages, so I just let it ride. When the check arrived, the party spent a good deal of time poring over how to split the bill. My manager had just swung by to run their cards, and they apparently gave him the same lecture about how we should just have regular black iced tea and said I forgot to take it off the bill. When he voided it off and checked with me, I told him, "Oh, that's right," and they switched to a soda and rang it in. He just shrugged his shoulders like his time had been wasted. I figured the table were either being cheapskates or dumb, so I happily dropped off the new bill and said, "So we took off the iced tea and corrected it with her Diet Coke." The guy took another 10 minutes staring at the bill and probably felt like the biggest ignoramus. To be fair, I don't know if they're really going to notice a 25-cent increase on their bill. I just think the funny thing is OP brought the bill back and they spent another 10 minutes looking at it like it's a crosswords puzzle that has a hidden word somewhere that they know is there but they just can't find, so they've got to examine it carefully for the next 10 minutes to try to find the next mistake. In the comments, a user named Golden Speck wrote, "Reminds me of a customer I had. The store I work at will sometimes allow non-receipted returns. The catch is, it will return at the current selling price minus 20%. Someone came in with a return and no receipt. I made an exception and returned it. They say, 'Oh, I definitely paid more than that.' I said, 'Well, this is the best I can do without proof of purchase.' She dumps her purse and starts digging. Success! She finds the receipt. Turns out she bought it on sale and used a coupon. If she had just accepted the non-receipted price and merchandise credit, she would have gotten more money back than she originally spent on it." Our next story is, sure, I'll take that survey again and again. One of my banks merged and then closed the branch that was in my town. The closest branch was a 30-minute drive, so I did all my banking online. At some point, I had to do something, and online wasn't working out, so I drove to the closest branch. I stood in line, got to the counter, and was told, "You could have done this online." I got ticked about this comment probably more than I should have, but okay, let's play. I said, I tried for about 15 minutes and kept getting an error, so I waited until this morning, tried again, got the same error, and decided to drive half an hour for help. The customer support rep replied, "You could have called the toll-free number for assistance." I say, "Or I could have come here for help." They reply, "Yes, but calling might have solved the issue." I said, "Okay, let's do this instead. Let's close the accounts, and that will solve the issue." At this point, the manager steps in and tries to smooth things over. Nope. There's no reason for me to have to spend an hour of my time driving to and from a bank. I could move this money to AA, BB, CC, or DD, which are all 6 minutes from my house. Manager closes out the accounts, gives me a check, and out I go. Drive back to my town and throw the money in another bank. Then I get an email asking me to take a survey. So I did and noted all the above. The next day, I signed into my account online and it generated another survey request. I clicked in and took the survey again and copied and pasted the replies to a Google Doc. That way, when I checked my account online every single day and a new survey request was made every single day, I could take it in a minute. So far, I've done it daily for over a month. They keep asking for my opinion, so who am I not to oblige? It's not really relevant to this post, but you know how much of a sucker I am? I almost kind of enjoy filling out surveys, and when one of those emails inevitably come in that's like, "Fill out a survey and you have a chance to win a $100 Walmart gift card," my little peanut brain goes, I could win that. I could be the winner. How many people even probably fill that survey out anyways? $100 at Walmart, that could get like 4 things these days. In the comments, a user named health number4265 left a comment saying, "I always loved calling my internet provider to complain when my service was out, only to have the recording point out that I could get a faster response if I did it online, even after I pressed the internet down button. Freaking morons. If I could have done it online, then my internet wouldn't have been down and I wouldn't have a problem to call about." Another user named Kalkin left a comment writing, "You keep logging into an account you closed a month ago? Something fishy's going on here." The OP responded, "Pretty sure it's still allowing this since I'd set it to get all of my documents online and I need my tax information from the bank. Every single time I log in, I expect to get an edit that my credentials aren't valid, but hasn't happened yet." Our next story is, "Ma'am, these knives are high-end." This happened about 20 years ago. My most frequently used knife was an 8-inch chef's knife, but the one I had was of such crappy quality that I dreamed of the day when I would have enough money to buy myself a real one. So when I eventually got my first professional job, I got my finances all straightened out and decided that it was time to make my big knife purchase. I waited for a sale and then went to the department store. Back in the day, that department store employed an older man who was their knife expert in charge of high-end knives. I chatted with him about the difference between brands, and while I was deciding, the old man went on break. He was replaced by a young rover from another department. I picked up my treasured choice and went to the checkout to pay for it. Now, the knife I chose was almost $200 at a regular price, but on sale for about $140. But the young guy behind the counter rang it up at $40. So I said, "What? Did you say?" And he interrupted me and repeated, $40. I said, "I don't think that's right." He pulled out a price list, pointed at an item and said, "See, it's $40. So I smiled and pointed out, "That says 6-inch sandwich knife." And he nodded uncomprehendingly. I held up my knife and said, "This is an 8-inch chef's knife." And I was about to help him find the correct price, but he held up his hand in a rude way to cut me off and said, "Ma'am, these knives are high-end. If you're looking for something cheaper, you should try that section over there." I was so shocked I just stared at him. Then I said slowly, "So the price for this 8-inch chef's knife is $40? And he confirms it, so I said, "Okay," and paid for it and left. After that, I vacillated between feeling bad for cheating the old man and wishing that I'd grabbed a whole armload of fancy chef's knives for $40 each. But I've certainly enjoyed using that knife ever since. Edit, it's a Wusthof. Is anybody else surprised at how upstanding OP tried to be here? If I'm buying something that I know is $140, $200, and the guy goes, "Yeah, no, it's $40, I'll be like, "Okay, thank you," and hand them my card or whatever, and then just run for the door. OP out here saying, "I kind of wish I grabbed a whole armload." Yeah, no, he probably would have caught on that there's something wrong if you're buying 12 knives. Surely he wouldn't have rung a whole armload full of knives up wrong. Just be grateful for the lucky break and walk out of there knowing you got a great deal. In the comments, an anonymous user wrote, "You got it for a steal." The OP replied, "True, but my joy was alloyed with a tinge of guilt. Good thing I held my temper." Our next story is, "Every day off must have a medical certificate, no exceptions." This one comes from my old man's days of working at Ford. The usual policy for them, and I'm sure for most of you out there, is a single day off does not require a medical note, but multiple days in a row, or those before and after a public holiday, do. A new manager decided to cut down on these employees who would take a sickie every so often. He would put in place the policy that even a single day off sick would require a medical certificate. What happened was people would comply with this request, but now, rather than one day off to relax, people would take a whole week off. You see, doctors out here are pretty relaxed and just ask you how many days you want off when writing a certificate. We also get 14 days sick leave per year. The new policy turned that one day off into 5-day-itis. After a little while of this, the policy was rescinded. Oddly enough, this raised its head again at my first workplace. The new manager was happily telling us how every single day off would require a certificate. I pointed out this story from my old man's days at work. His new policy lasted less than 2 hours. I mean, realistically, it all depends on the doctor that you get being an absolute bro. If you show up all frazzled, maybe if you do look truly sick and you show up and you say, "The doctor says even for one day off, I have to have a note. I'm so sorry for bothering you and taking your time up." Maybe they'll take one look at you and go, "You know what? You need about a week off." In the comments, a user named LOL65536 left a comment writing, "The other things this does that's not obvious as quickly is get people to come into work when they're only a little sick because they don't yet want to go to a doctor, which then spreads to the entire department, which then leads to downtime." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. If you don't want any downtime and you want some more malicious compliance stories, you can check out another video I made right there on the left of the screen right now. Or if you missed my latest video, you can check that out on the right of the screen. That said, I'll see you all next up time with some more stories.